Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We'll be discussing the five simple steps to comply with the California Consumer Protection Act. I'd like to welcome all the participants who've taken out the time to be here today. And if at any point throughout this discussion you have any questions, you can post them in the Q&A section here or in the chat box. You'll see it right below at your bottom toolbar. And the speakers will be addressing your questions at the end of the discussion during the question and answer session. This call is being recorded, and everyone on this call will be provided with a video recording of this webinar. So just a quick overview of what we'll be discussing today. We'll be looking at why you need to comply with the CCPA, what exactly are users write on their data, and what can be the implications of not having complied with CCPA. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly introduce myself and hand it over to our esteemed panelists. I'm Malika Tiwari. I work as the Marketing and Communications Specialist at Vista Solutions, and I'll be host for the webinar today. I'd like to welcome our esteemed panelists, Joe and Faisal. I'm going to hand it over to you, Faisal, to give us a quick introduction of yourself.
Hi, thank you, Malika. Thank you so much. And welcome, everyone. I'm Faisal Basar. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Vista Solutions. At my role here, I'm responsible for all projects which we execute for our customers. And we also have Joe from security joining us. So, Joe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Faisal and Malika. I'm Joe Hardenbrook. I'm a big title, but just means that I have to work harder. Commercial sales channel partner manager for Security AI. Been with the company for about 1.5 years, and which has been a great ride, and excited to be able to be today with one of our top partners, Vista Solutions. So thank you for the invitation to be with you today.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Joe, for taking the time and this webinar. Will be very interesting to hear from you, your insights. Of course, it's very busy time for you as a company. A lot of activity in this space, so we'll talk more. But just to introduce our company, Vista Solutions, we are a company which works for digital transformation of our enterprise customers. We work with small to medium size and the mid-market customers. We implement various enterprise solutions like ERP, business intelligence, digital transformation, and compliance on different pieces. So today is the topic of CCPA compliance, and we have Joe from security, and maybe Joe, you can introduce security to our audience.
Sure, yeah, it's my pleasure. Security, as a company, we have been around for about the last 2.5 years. Up to 3 years. We came public or out and being able to offer our platform about 1.5 years ago. We focus on privacy, data privacy and data security. We have more and more solutions, modules that are coming about. As a company, we are located in the Silicon Valley area, but we are a global company with customers from all over the world. And we focus mainly on GDPR, CCPA, but also other regulations in Latin America and even more states here in the US that are looking at privacy regulations. We are kind of an unusual company in that when Rehan Jalil, our CEO, started the company, it was in response to a GDPR request that he received from an employee in the company that he was with, Symantec, and in the process of figuring out how are we going to respond to that, he came up with the idea of, you know what, this is big, it's huge, it's going to be global, and there needs to be a company, a privacy company and a security company that focuses on automating the process of privacy compliance. And so we are just always coming up with new solutions. We've been honored in a couple of awards at RSA, through Forrester, and most recently the IAPP Innovator of the Year Award. So we're real excited to partner with you all, and looking forward to working together.
Yeah, it's really exciting, Joe, and of course the IAPP award is a big achievement. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
So let's dive into CCPA. And what CCPA gives is it gives people, which is our customer, rights to their personal data, right? It gives them a right to get access to their data. They can ask you to delete their data, or they can ask you to, hey, restrict the use of my data. You know, you can have my data, but don't use it for certain purposes. Or they can ask you to, hey, give me my data or port my data. Right? So these are, and if you noticed, in all of these points, the common theme is data. It's all about data, and this is what the secure tool is really good at. And Joe will talk about data intelligence and data automation when we towards the later part of this webinar. And how you can do it. But talking about CCPA, it is very important to have CPRA also, which is coming up. It will be enforced from January 2023. It seems a long time to go, but it has a look back to January 2022. And since CCPA is already enforced, we should start preparing for CPRA. So we thought of just touching base on what is difference between CCP and CPRA. And maybe, Joe, you can just highlight what's new coming in CPRA.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some really basic things that that you have laid out right here. That I mean, there's some new definitions to what is sensitive data and what isn't sensitive data. And so companies are going to need to begin to take a look at that. It's also adding, instead of just the Attorney General, there is in process a new enforcement agency that will take on the responsibility of and not just enforcing, but also auditing and making sure that companies are compliant. And then, I mean, there are just some basic other kinds of things. The breach liability, I think one of the big ones is the audit and risk assessments that are changing for us, and we need to understand that a little bit more. But there are some things that are coming right away that we need to take a look at. The one big one is employees, as far as responding to employees' requests. That's been moved out a bit, and so it was supposed to be enforced January 1st, but it's going to be over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and then we have a link which we share with you in the chat. This is a webinar focused specifically on CPRA by security. So you can look at the recording of that webinar.
Yeah, it's going to be well worth it for people to sign up and be there next week.
Sure. Yeah. And back to CCPA, which is already in place. There are some enforcement. There are some civil penalties if it's not met. The penalty is $7,500 per violation. And there is also provision for class action lawsuits. So if you see, if you have, say, 100,000 customers, then the damages can go up to 75 million. But maybe Joe, there are some caveats. It's not in practice people do get a warning or chances to make amendments to what they're doing. So maybe you can talk about your experience of what some customers have faced.
Right. Yeah, thanks. And that's a great question, because there are several situations so far where someone's received a warning, or they're taking time to figure exactly what's happening here. And I think also too, because of the new legislation, that things have just kind of quieted down for a bit. But I do know that there were some immediate and continuing not just violations, but lawsuits that had already been filed, breach notification situations. And so, it started January 1st of this year, and there was some immediate reaction and audits and letters sent out. And so, just even checking for, do you have a DSR request form for California individuals? Do you have even a cookie consent, or do you have the opt-out, remove all my data piece on your website? So what we have heard is that is going to continue, but also waiting to see how things kind of flush out over the next year or so.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So let's step back and see some of, if you decide use your your legacy tools or just your manual processes, what are the challenges before we move to this and understand how automated tools can help you meet the compliance requirements? So firstly, your data is fragmented across multiple systems, and maybe Joe can talk about his experience on how security works with customers, and when they look at the tool and find out where the customer's data is, it is really surprising for them, for the companies to know that it's spread across so many systems. So it's fragmented and it's complex, and of course it's slow and reliable. And as we know, CCPA mandates some time-bound action. So there is a DSR request, there is you have to respond in a certain time, right? So that's why you need to have an automated system to meet those requirements and not have manual processes. But Joe, what have you seen your customers struggling with before they move to your platform?
Well, and there's a couple different things. First is, in fact, I was on a meeting yesterday with a potential customer. We're doing a proof of concept right now, and we connected up to data stores and it really just one. And on the meeting yesterday morning, when we're kind of walking through, what took place, they were already overwhelmed by how much data they had that they didn't know about. And we're finding that pretty consistent. I mean, they were up to 10 to 20 times more than what they had imagined that they had. And just not even having a clear picture, like clarity to really know, so what data do we have? Where is it? Who's responsible for it? And, can we tie it? How are we going to tie it to an individual if we get a DSR request? And we have seen customer after customer, do the scans, find the information, and begin to deal with the fragmentation that now everyone's speaking the same language, everybody's communicating with one another, and that's part of what the tool does, is it brings all the different divisions together, to be able not just to speak the same language, but to be able to understand. So what kind of data do we have? Where is it? And whose is it? So it deals with each one of these, takes away the complexity of it, and just the slow and unreliable part of the manual process of how many Excel spreadsheets can you walk through every day. It's those kinds of things of how can we make this simple, take away the complexity, and make it really user friendly.
Correct, and that's very insightful of how customers can learn exactly what's happening with it once you have this automated tool in place,
Mm-hmm.
and look at where data resides, how's the flow, and so on.
Well, and Faisal, I think everyone just assumes that everyone knows where their data is and what kind of data they have. I mean, don't you find that to be true?
That's very true. Very true. If a user in your company signed up for a box.com account and storing spreadsheets and doing their analytics or reporting on that,
Mm-hmm.
it can get out of hand really fast, and we've seen that with our customers.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So moving on, what do you need to do to comply? And we've tried to distill into some 5 easy steps which you need to do to comply. So first and the most important thing is data, right? So you need to know where your data resides, what are the third-party tools which your company or your employees are using, where is customer data residing. Right? It could also be vendors or partnerships which you might have, and inadvertently your customer data is being passed to them, and you need to ensure that your vendors are also compliant. So the most important thing is data, and Joe will talk about intelligence in the tool. But the second most important thing is to provide users with rights, which is called DSR rights, which is right to access the data, the right to ask you to stop selling their data, or the right to say, hey, just erase all my data, forget about me, right? So these are the rights, and you need to make sure you are capable of complying to these requests from your customers. The third thing is, assessing your vendors, and security has a very nice assessment tool. It's an internal and external assessment where you can evaluate where you are in terms of your CCPA compliance. And towards the end, we'll talk about the freemium model which security has, and maybe Joe can talk about it towards the end of how you can use and evaluate some of these functionalities in your system, which is, I feel, it's pretty good, especially just the assessment to start off with. It tells you where you stand, right? So I feel that's a very valuable tool to begin with. The fourth is you have to make sure you have your notices on your website, the privacy notices, the right to opt out, and other things. You need to make sure it isn't, and then evaluate your security and data protection mechanisms. So what do you think? When customers come to you, how do you recommend them starting off with?
Well, that's where, just referring back to the meeting that I had yesterday, I mean, it's crucial that every company knows, first and foremost, being able to tie data back to an individual, to be able to provide a DSR response. First, we have to know, okay, where is our data? What kind of data do we have? So some kind of data inventory, data mapping solution is crucial, and being able to tie that with the assessment, the internal assessment piece, to be able to provide the PIAs and the DPIAs that are needed, or also if it's GDPR, the Article 30 reports. But just understanding data is such a crucial beginning step, that's one of the reasons why our platform in the very beginning, when Rehan and the production team began to imagine what does this look like, they decided we're going to start from the data up, that it's all about the data. Let's evaluate, let's see where your data is, what kind of data that you have, and then when the DSR request comes in, know exactly where we go to be able to provide a consumer in their data.
Right. Help us understand what's involved, what the platform provides.
Sure. Yeah, and this is great. I really appreciate the opportunity because this is a great platform, and the very core, at the very center, as you take a look at this, is the people data graph. And so what is this? Well, this is kind of the heart and soul. Currently, it's been pulled together with our data intelligence piece that we have released and are in the process of spreading the news about it. But what it does is it provides an automated way to be able to go in and scan data stores. And you can see up at the top on the right-hand side, all the different kinds of data stores, structured, unstructured, whether they exist on premise, whether they're private cloud, whether they're SaaS. We can connect, and in fact, right now in our inventory, we can connect to over 300 different data stores, kinds of data stores. And in being able to do that, we can go in and I'll talk toward the end of this in just a minute, but we can go in and we can, kind of like Siri or Alexa, just be able to go, people data graph, please show me the information, the PI data that we have for Faisal. And it is able to go in, scan to be able to look for what has already been scanned, and Faisal to be able to pull all your information that's in, let's say, the Vista data stores, and we can pull everything that there is in there that's personal information out and put it together so that you can see in the purple there, the DSR robotic automation, so that we can provide a DSR report, and we can automate the process. 90% of the process can be automated. And so, there is points where you can put eyes on the reports that have come back, but we can pull that information about you, and which really makes this tool very, very powerful and very effective in several different things, but DSR request especially. We move down just on that same side, and the consent management with GDPR's, the GDPR's opt-in and CCPA's opt-out requirements. We need a tool to be able to track and be able to obtain user consent. And so not just for cookie consent, but also for form and application consent. You can see right below that is the breach notification. Is not live at the moment, will be probably for the year. A lot of breach notification solutions out there. The one thing we can do is takes place, and we don't want it to. So if it does, with company, what we're able to do is to figure out exactly out of 1,000 or 2,000 million whose data resides in those data stores, we can narrow it down to there were 10 people who had their information breached, and being able to connect with those individuals instead of having to do big marketing campaigns and public notices. Being able to notify 10 is very different than having to notify 1,000 or some of the recent ones that we've seen in millions of people. As we look at the other side, we see the assessment pieces, vendor and internal assessment. Both of these are very, very effective in finding out exactly with the vendor assessment, the different vendors that you work with, how this third party, this other company that you work with, what do they do with the data that they're provided? Do they share this data with others? And it's crucial that every company knows what the vendors are doing with their information. They kind of flesh out the details of a data privacy agreement or other legal contracts. In fact, at a company that I work with, when we were going through our vendor process for us to become a vendor and provide a solution for them, they were doing Excel spreadsheet third-party vendor requests. And we go, you know what we can do is we can take our vendor assessment piece and we can create something, a template where you can now automatically and working together be able to provide that for vendors in the future. Internal, we call this assessment automation because it works hand in hand with our data mapping tool or data inventory tool. It's very similar, except it's, what are the assessments that need to be done and completed within a company, the PIAs and the DPIAs that are crucial and come into play when audits take place. They're also down at we see the data inventory. This is part of our data mapping automation, being able to automate the entire process that we start with of scanning data, working internally to understand who owns that data and whose data it is. Lastly, we keep records, and that's an automated process. So if ever a company is needing to be able to respond to a request from an auditor, they can just download and be able to get the information that's needed. It's a conversational interface with those DSR folks or consent where we can interact with them. It's a collaborative portal, not just internally, but also with the vendors that we're working with, the third-party companies. And one of the things that we have that is a part of this all is what we call workflow orchestration. And what it does is it brings a communication tool to every piece that we see here on the platform. So that's probably a little longer, but yeah, that's
very helpful, Joe. And it covers the entire gamut of CCPA and other compliances. Like that's what the tool enables you. And I'm really looking forward to the breach notification. I think it's a game changer. Like, instead of
it's going to be very powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful, very useful. Really looking forward to it. So moving on, maybe you can talk about the difference, like how this AI-enabled tool lets you automate the process.
Yeah, and there's a couple different things here. These are all the different areas that we see that the automation comes into place. And we have a bot that we call Audi. And Audi is at the very core of our automated people data graph or data intelligence, where we request, let's say we want to scan a data store, we can request that, and Audi goes in and is able to gather all the information that's needed to be able to know what's in that data store, and be able to discover, exactly who needs to own that, what are the different characteristics, what is the data that is there. But also Audi empowers the people data graph, where we're able to, in the DSR piece or some of the other pieces, be able to take that individual's, there's data there for an individual, but we can even narrow it down to, here's the data that belongs to, Faisal, here's Faisal's information. And that process would take hundreds and thousands of hours for some companies to be able to find all the data in their systems and be able to tie that back to an individual. And so that's the power. Is first, it can provide 90% automation, maybe a little bit more. We're still adding to it, but for many companies, that could be 2 or 3 full-time folks, or that could be, people that are having to focus completely on processes, where they would be released and be free to be able to add value to the company in many other ways. So not only does it provide a quicker response to fulfill, let's say, DSR requests, but it also provides tremendous value and cost savings for companies. And we know how important that is in this day and age.
Correct. And it's a very good analogy. It's Audi is like Siri, but it's for your enterprise, for your data. And then you can just ask, hey, where is Faisal's data, right? It will show up all the places where it resides, and you can respond. And that's the automation piece, which is really very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And you touched upon this, but a little bit on, you can talk about how your customers have derived benefits of this AI-powered privacy ops.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of different stories of companies that we're working with where just to be able to, the very first one, the reduction in time to comply, being able to only take maybe a few minutes, maybe an hour or so to look through the individual's data that we've gone in. It's been scanned, it's been pulled, it's been attached to the individual, and just to review it cuts down from how much time does it take to be able to manually provide that. But, being able to go from, 45 days or 30 days or 60 days, all the way down to maybe an hour or two, maybe 10 hours at the most, to be able to gather data, tie it to an individual, and be able to respond to a DSR request. So, I mean, that's a tremendous savings right there. And also, we talked a little bit about the financial piece. It also, the other part of the platform that I didn't spend a lot of time on is it is a modular platform, and the other key piece is all of the modules talk to one another. So it's completely integrated. It is modular, so people are able to phase in. Well, let's start here. Let's do this. but really is tremendous cost savings. The other piece is being able to know where all the data is and not get surprised when an audit is done and they find, well, you have data all over here too. Being able to know exactly where it is in an automated way is extremely helpful. So, and I do like the natural language of being able to type in, show me the data for Joe, and it goes into our system and pulls it, and we can see where it is, we can see what kind of data it is, and we can see where that data resides right now.
Very powerful. That's very helpful, Joe. And maybe we talk about the offer you have for people to start using the platform and getting some advantage. And so maybe you can talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, each one of these, and there is one additional one, the DSR request. We do have a manual DSR just for a company to be able to go in, see what it's like to put the request together, whether it's the cookie consent or universal consent. You still are able to see, what does a cookie banner look like? You get one domain, so you're able to put it up on your website. The universal consent is being able to have one collection point to be able to gather information. But what it does is it gives individuals or companies the ability to kind of see what it's like, figure out how it works. We have companies right now, customers that they got a freemium and they're still working on the freemium because it is, it is an accepted cookie consent banner, DSR request process, all the different pieces that we have, and also the being able to connect the data mapping and the assessment automation to be able to work together to provide those PIAs and DPIAs and be able to understand some risk assessment with data within the company.
It's a great offer, and then we will be sharing the link for everyone to sign up for the freemium. And as Joe said, a lot of this will meet your requirements. So we will be sharing that links. Now, thank you, Joe, for your time, and
Gotcha.
we'll move on to questions. I think we have a couple of questions here, and this is a very good question. Thanks for bringing it up. And this covers around, could security AI software create a hard zone for attackers? How are you addressing security of the data that the tool is assessing? So we've been talking about getting all your data, knowing where all your data is, and getting insights. And this question talks about what security is inbuilt in security AI. So maybe you can talk about that. And I know there's a lot of material on it, but maybe you can touch on that point.
Yeah, one of the things that we do, especially with DSR requests and some of the different other data that is discovered, if it goes out to the requester, we do hash and encrypt our information, but to be able to assess, and I'm thinking on the one side there is security to that's provided with the information that's discovered through our people data graph and our data mapping. And yet on the other side, we didn't talk about it much because it is on the security side and we can talk about it in the future, but the data intelligence piece that evaluates. So how secure is our data? What kind of data is it in a secure, is it secured where it is? Being able to do risk assessments, is our data at risk? And if it is, where is it? And what do we need to do about it? And that's the new data intelligence piece that we released over the last month.
Right. And yeah, so security has built-in security features to avoid such issues. It's very secure, and there is a lot of material which covers and answers this question. Thank you, Joe, for the reply.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more, is how is GDPR different from CCPA? Of course, the focus of this webinar is CCPA, but the same tool, security, is used for GDPR compliance. So maybe you can talk a little bit on that, the difference between GDPR and CCPA and what we need to do.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of real basic pieces that are different. In that, number one, when it comes to any kind of consent that GDPR is an opt-in, and CCPA is an opt-out. So what that basically means is that, hey, we're doing this for CCPA. This is the information that we're gathering, and it's your responsibility to opt out. With GDPR, it's, do you want us to be able to find and use this information, but a company or an organization is, right up at the front, going, we're already doing it, using this information, for cookies or for form-based information. We're not doing, for GDPR, we're not doing that, but if you would like us to do that, you can opt in. So that's one of the basic ones. There are several other, the whole, when it comes to fines and violations, GDPR is far stronger in what it's looking for and how it governs, all of what's going on over in the EU and all the other countries that are a part of it, and here in the US, the responsibility that we have. So there are those basic kinds of differences, but in working with, we have companies in Europe and companies here that are, really looking seriously at, here are the different pieces that we need for GDPR compliance, the consent piece. There are some pieces that are with GDPR that are not mandatory in CCPA. And so, GDPR has far more things and pieces that need to be followed as opposed to CCPA. And we've seen, some of the difference in some of the big fines and how closely companies and organizations in Europe, in the EU especially, are being watched over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Joe. Very insightful. And I think we are time's up for our webinar. We want to make sure all questions are answered. There are a few questions. We will reach out to each attendee separately, but feel free to reach us at sales@vistasolutions.com. We'll be sharing links to security webinars and more information material with you. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.